Hello Space Engineers, Wellington 6012 here, and welcome to episode number 7 of my tutorial series. How is everybody today? I hope you are well. So you find me where you left me last time, although maybe I was standing on a rock over there somewhere, but yeah, we're still here at the base and things to do. Main sort of focus of today is going to be adapting our respawn pod, our atmospheric drill ship is at the moment, turning that into a rover. So yeah, just it's kind of part of the progression usually building a rover, and it's just a chance to kind of still revisit and investigate some of those pathways, some of those decisions that we have in the early game, and yeah, just explain again some of the different options that we could have taken. Right, so first of all, let me just turn my HUD on. Now, we are getting quite a few signals and things, so there is getting a little bit of HUD clutter at the moment. We can tidy that up a bit. So, first of all, I mean, the ore things down there, we could turn off the ore detector, that would get rid of them. We've got an antenna behind us, we could turn that off, that would get rid of that. Then the GPSs, we could go into the control panel and into the GPS tab, and we could disable those as well, we could hide them. The other option is we do have a shortcut that we can use to manage them, and that is by pressing the H key. When we do that, we can see that now they are fully visible. So we've got the option there to have all the different names on the GPSs or signals in full. If I press H again, now it's going to remove the names. Not for those ore deposits, they still have the name on them. But yeah, depending on what it is, whether it's an antenna or a GPS, depends on whether it default puts the name on there. And then if I press H again, it hides them. So, you know, that's quite useful for what we're going to be doing now, which is really just having a bit of a play around here, and the GPSs are kind of irrelevant to us at the moment. So yeah, and if I press it again, and there they come up, back to normal display. So again, pressing the H key, we can select through those. Certainly, when you're looking for stuff, the full names can be quite useful as well. But anyway, we'll switch them off for now. Right, so let's get into things. Okay, so I went into creative mode briefly and just pasted one of these respawn pods. Just for reference, I'm not going to use it, just so we remember what it looked like in the early stages, because I will adapt this. And what I'm intending to do is kind of avoid trying to use any of this setup. But also explain how we could have this set up when we were sort of back at the start game over that other valley. Yeah, so we'll utilise some of the stuff off here to kind of improve this. Bearing in mind we do actually have the resources here to do that now, but we'll just go through the process. And yeah, I'm also just going to keep this nice, decent sized cargo container and the connector, which we wouldn't necessarily have access to straight away. Remember, we did put a medium cargo container on the back of here fairly early on, but actually to get some steel tubes, some small steel tubes to make the connector, we would need an assembler for that. So first of all, we could have the same setup utilizing some of the stuff that we get out of this pod. And we can also go down the mobile pathway, which would be to turn this into a rover, which I'm going to do now, and actually put an assembler on it. And that way that will give us what we need, plus power for the assembler to be able to sort of keep moving. So I'm just going to go through that quickly and explain how you can do that. So first of all, I have taken some parts off this. So we've got 4 landing gears, which I've already ground down, and also some extra steel that was under here. So I put them in here, and you can see that we've also got some motors as well. So that's all quite useful. We can make that in the survival kit, but that's really quite useful to have in the early game, because you know that's quite a lot of stone you would have to mine to be able to get those things. So salvaging the stuff off here is quite useful. Let's just get this out of the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put an assembler on this. Now this is small grid, and assemblers are only large grid. So I'm going to have to sort of form some way of adapter. We could do it basically how we've done it here, is that we're using a connector to connect the small grid to the large grid. But we can actually do that here using a rotor. So I'm going to go to the G menu, and I'm going to show you in progression where the rotors are, because it does have a little bit of a hiccup that we need to do. And that is that the rotors, as you can see, we have unlocked them, but if we were at the start game we hadn't unlocked them, we would need to build a battery. In order to build a battery, we would need to build an assembler. But if we keep going down, the rotor is actually also unlocked by building a solar panel. So we can build a solar panel in the survival kit. So yeah, so we can get access to the rotors, but we will strike a bit of a problem, and I'll just put this on my toolbar. I think we'll just put it in here. So I'm going to put that into there. And if we want to complete the rotors, we will need small steel tubes, or in the case of an advanced rotor, which is what we want, we're going to need large steel tubes. So I'm going to put this advanced rotor 3x3, and I'm going to put it on, I've got an access port here. We wouldn't have had this because I doubt we would have had this cargo container at the start game. We would have only had the medium one, but just to make that connection to be able to power it, we'll put it on there. And I'm lucky that yes, I can actually make it connect through the conveyors, but normally we wouldn't do that. Let's just go and grind this 3x3 small grid head off. And now what I'm going to do is go into here and grab, what I want to do is grab the part, so that's the 3x3 small grid, but I just want to grab a 1x1, just a standard advanced rotor part. I'm going to press the R key, and that's going to change it to large grid. So now we have a large grid version. I'm just going to have to position this over the top of the small grid rotor without trying to touch the, just got to sort of line it up, but also I don't want to get too close because then it will kind of snap back to being small grid. But I think that's going to be about right. We'll just give this a go. You might have to give it a couple of tries. Let's maybe, no, I think that's going to miss. Hang on, let me try again. Let me just put a grinder in here. So let's have another go at that. So we'll do that. And we need to go to just the part, press the R key, and try and line it up. So that should be in about the middle. Okay, that's got it. That's got it. Okay, so now if we go into the menu, the control panel, and find the rotor, even though it's incomplete, we can hopefully attach it. And now we have a large grid attached to a small grid. So now if I find an assembler, there's one there, and we can place that on top. If I wanted, I could actually put it that way, and when I complete this assembler, then in this particular build I would have this connected via the conveyor. As I say, that's probably not an option that would be available to me in the start game if I was only using a medium. Unless I rotated it, but anyway. Yeah, so if I did that and finished welding this up, so using parts made in the survival kit, then I would be able to take the assembler with me. Plus that would unlock a whole lot of things as well, of course. So definitely in the early game, putting in a large grid assembler on your small grid ship is definitely a viable option to go for. I'm not going to weld this up, because I have an assembler over there, so I don't think there's really much point in doing that. But yeah, just showing you that you can actually put an assembler on a small grid. The battery here that is on board would be sufficient to power it. And it's quite useful to do that because for one of the things we're going to need in wheels is the large steel tubes. And we do have some, but not heaps. Alright, so I want to make some upgrades and improvements. One of the key materials for doing this will be cobalt. So just for the time being, I'm going to ignore the fact that I've got this cobalt processing in the refinery. Rather, I'm just going to stick with getting that resource, salvaging it from the respawn pod, as though we were still in the start game phase of our playthrough. So the first thing that I want to upgrade is my hand tools. If I go into the G menu and jump into the character tools, you can see that we've got several tiers, 4 tiers of each type of hand tool. So we've got the basic one, but we've also got available an enhanced version, a proficient version, and an elite version. Now when we upgraded from our survival kit to a basic assembler, one of the things that opened up for us, we go into the production tab, is across here we've got components, equipment, tools, weapons, and ammo. So you can see that when I go back to the survival kit, there's a lot less range of each of those options. And in fact, the tools, we've only got the basic version available to us. So when we upgraded to a basic assembler, we're now able to upgrade our tools. When we get an advanced assembler, we will be able to upgrade further to those higher tiered tools. For the enhanced versions, well, we can already make a hand drill. It only needs iron, nickel, and silicon, which we have, so we'll make one of those. But if we want to make the enhanced grinder or the enhanced welder, we're going to need some cobalt. So again, ignoring that we've got cobalt in there, pretending we haven't found it yet or have the means to process it, let's get some off of this respawn pod. What I'm going to do is I'm going to salvage a metal grid out of this atmospheric thruster. Because where I am in the game at the moment, I feel like that would be better value as upgraded hand tools than it would be in a thruster at the moment. So let's put the metal grid into the basic assembler, and we'll go back into the production. So you can see when I hover over that we need a cobalt to make a metal grid. But we can also get a cobalt out of a metal grid through disassembling that metal grid. So we've got 2 options up here. We can assemble things and we can disassemble things. So again, this is an upgrade that is not available in the survival kit. So I'm just going to click on disassembling. There is an option here to disassemble all the stuff that is in the inventory, but I don't want to disassemble that. I only want to disassemble the metal grid, which I can either select the inventory one, or I could select one from the list of available things. So I'm just going to click on one of these, and now it's disassembling it. We'll go out of assembling, and now you can see in our inventory we have a single cobalt. Back into production, back into the tools. Now we can make an enhanced grinder, and we can make an enhanced welder. So we'll just let those process. And what I'm also going to do is, since I've got new ones coming through, I don't need the old ones. We'll transfer those across. And I'll put those ones into my inventory. I'm going to go back into production, and I'm just going to recycle those basic tools because I don't need them. Put them back on assembling. Okay, so let's just upgrade our tools on our toolbar. And we have upgraded tools. So they are a good percentage better than their previous versions. And yeah, as soon as I can unlock proficient and elite ones, I will. They will need more rarer resources such as silver and platinum. You can also find upgraded tools in unknown signals and cargo containers in various derelict ships or trade stations, and you can, speaking of trade stations, you can also purchase the tools as well. So there's ways to get them early in the game. Right, so the next thing that I want to do, I think, is build a cargo container. Really useful at the start game, especially with this sort of setup here where we've got, you know, a lot of stone potentially going in, and we're sort of starting to run out of room. You know, we're half full on this one. We have got this, which has got a bit of stuff in there, but yeah, certainly having a cargo container would be useful. So let's make one of those, and I'll just middle mouse button to add it to the build planner and also get the components out of the inventory. So let's do that now. Do that, and anything in there? No, let's just check in here. I don't think there is. So we're still missing some things. So the first thing is we need a display and 3 steel tubes. So we're going to say that I do have the assembler, that it's available to me. I just don't have cobalt, so let's do those. So now that's them. And the only thing that we're missing are the 4 metal grids. So I'm going to salvage the 4 metal grids out of these atmospheric thrusters, bearing in mind that I did build these atmospheric thrusters, and if we were really at the very start game, I could have got those 4 metal grids out of the hydrogen thruster that used to be under the middle here. So let's just grab those out of these atmospheric thrusters. Okay, so that's the cargo container done, and yeah, nice and central, connects everything. It's got all the ports on it, so certainly for me it's a quality of life thing to have a cargo container like this nice and early in the game. I find it more valuable than having it as the thrusters. Let's transfer stuff into there so it's all sort of in the one place. Also with the thrusters, you do, not having thrusters I should say, we pick up a lot of motors from them. So again, early stages of the game, you're going to have to hand drill all that stone in order to build those motors. So to get them salvaged from somewhere, I feel like it's a good option. Let's put all the ingots in there as well, just so they're centrally located. And yeah, so there we go. As I say, just for me, it's quality of life just having good access stuff and to be able to organise it. Right, let's just move on to this now and just have a quick look at some of the things that we can salvage off of it, and then we'll get into the wheels. So remembering that the remote control we originally made from stuff that we salvaged, one of the things was from the hydrogen thruster that was underneath. So that was a thing. I think we'll just get rid of the remote. We don't need it right now. There's a timer in here that we can get rid of. I'm going to keep the gyroscope. We'll talk about that later maybe, but we will keep it. The beacon, we don't need that really anymore. We've got an antenna that will do pretty much the same job for what we need. We do get a small steel tube out of that as well, which is quite useful in the early game stage. Bearing in mind that if you manage to get some unknown signals, they would have those as well, along with a parachute hatch, which again has a small steel tube. So if we wanted to make one of these small connectors in the early stages before we had an assembler, this is where we would get our small steel tubes, assuming we had unknown signals turned on. This is going to have a canvas in it as well, which we can salvage. It's in a temporary container. I'll talk about those another time, but they are a thing. And yeah, so that's apart from steel and maybe a few stray conveyor pieces, that's pretty much it. I'll break this down as well. So yeah, I'm just going to do a little bit of breaking down of stuff on this, and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I've tidied all that up, got rid of kind of all the surplus blocks. There was a gap in here, so I moved the cockpit a block back. Also put in a hydrogen engine. So if we do need to generate some power, we have got that little option there. Now, if we didn't have an assembler, we wouldn't be able to build this because it does require a power cell. So that's one thing. And when it comes to it also needs small steel tubes and large steel tubes. So yeah, we would need to either find some of those somewhere or make them in an assembler. Bearing in mind, we don't need cobalt, we just need the assembler. That goes for the wheels as well. When we do the wheels, they're going to need steel tubes also, so we'll have a look at that in a second. But really, the point of this exercise was just to sort of show that you can build things without cobalt, particularly. You kind of do need an assembler, but you can build things without cobalt, and really the battery is kind of the key block here in the early stages of preserving that until we get an assembler. So yeah, that's the key block that we're using, that we're kind of basing this new vehicle off. Right, yeah, so we'll move on to the wheels now. So let's go into the toolbar configuration. We've got two styles of wheel here. So we've got this wheel suspension, which is the vanilla wheel suspension. And then we've also got this off-road variant as well. So the off-road one comes as part of the Wasteland DLC. And it is a content pack which the wheels are part of the pack that you need to pay for. So you'd need to purchase the Wasteland DLC if you wanted access to these wheels. They are just a decorative change. There is no, there's actually no change in the properties and the physical properties of how it works and interacts, the physics. But yeah, they do look pretty cool though. So I will actually put one of those on the toolbar. So we'll just drop that down into there. But we will use the vanilla ones. Now there is a left and a right, so we just need to be aware of that. Where are they gone? I've lost them. There they are. So there is a left variant and a right variant, so we just need to be aware of that. There's different sizes as well. So yeah, first of all, what I might do is I might just go into creative mode quickly, and we can just paste them and have a look. So, of the two decorative styles, there is also two sort of variants in size. This size is the original size. So this is what the suspension, or the axle part of it, is 1 block by 2 blocks. So we can sort of paste that. We'll paste one on the side here. We'll go 3 by 3. Then more recently has been added to the game is a shorter version, so it doesn't stick out so much. Let's just find that. Short wheel, and we'll go for 3 by 3. So where is it? We'll go for the 3 by 3. So we're comparing apples with apples. And there we go, that's it there. So you can see how it just sticks out 1 block less than the other one, which certainly has its purposes, has its uses, but that's the difference between the short and the regular variants. And then following on from that, we have different sizes of wheels. So this is the 3 by 3 wheel, which is probably the most common one that people use. And if we go up a size, we've got the 5 by 5. So I'll just paste that in here. I'll just try and stand out of the way. If I stand where the wheel's meant to be, it won't put the wheel in. Okay, so there we go. There's the 5 by 5. So significantly larger than the 3 by 3, just both in the size of the suspension, because it's sort of 2 by 2 by 3 or something. There's not really a lot of additional benefit to having 5 by 5. There's not necessarily more power or more grip. I won't go into more detail than that because it's a whole nother thing, but I'm sure you can find out information on the difference between the two. There's also mods that can kind of make this as effective as this one, but generally speaking, in the small grid at least, the 3 by 3 is kind of the optimal size. We do have another couple of sizes, so if we keep going into it, and we've got the 1 by 1, which has been around for a while, and is frankly pretty useless. You can see it barely clears the actual suspension, so you almost need to be pretty much on perfectly flat ground like a lake or like a platform like this. So more recently though, there has been another variant added, which is the 2 by 2. So if you're after a smaller wheel than the 3 by 3, this is probably your better option. Yeah, it's actually usable because it's just usable. So those are the different sizes. All of them come in the short variants to get them closer to your vehicle, and they all come in the wasteland variants as well, the off-road variant. So let me get rid of those, and then we'll go through with the actual making them. So as well as left and right, there is a up and down orientation as well. So with the original suspension, there's like the shock absorber at the top, and there's a sort of movable arm that's at the bottom. So pretty easy to tell on this variant. If we go to the short version, then again we've still got that sort of arm at the bottom, and I don't know if there's not really anything at the top, but yeah, got the curved arm at the bottom, sort of replicating it. So pretty easy to tell which way up those are. If we go into the warfare variant, on the sort of original one, the 2 by the regular size, the 2 by 1, we've got these like warning stickers on there. So again, that's a really easy way to tell. It's a lot trickier to tell on the warfare or the off-road short suspension. So how you can tell with this is with there's a little square at the top. So I don't know if you can see that. There's a little square with a diagonal line across it at the top of it. So that is up for that one. Yeah, but we are going to use just the regular, and we're going to go with the original style suspension. And yeah, we've got the left one, so we'll put that on the left side. And then we will put the right one on the right side. I'm going to go with the 3x3s, and we've got it up the right way. So the first thing that I'm going to do, just even before I weld these up, is I'm going to jump in the cockpit and jump into the menu, and I'm actually going to name these things. So I'm just going to call this wheel, and I'm going to call it left, and I'm going to call it front. It will just help now to do that when it comes time to do some settings with these wheels, because there are different settings. So we'll do that like so, and then I will do the same with the this one here, and I'll do the same with this one here. So leave this with me. I will weld these up. As you can see, they do need some steel tubes each, and they do need some small steel tubes, so I'll have to produce those in the assembler. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. A few lights and paint job really make it quite neat. Just something I'll mention again, I've talked about it before, but I've got this sort of largish cargo container in here. There definitely would be value in just having a medium cargo container and a survival kit. Now I've only got enough parts for one survival kit, and certainly having it here at the base is my preference today at the moment. Probably the safer option as well, because if something were to happen to this crashing, I would still have this. The thing will be is if something happens to my clone while I'm out further afield, I'm going to respawn back here, so it might be a long walk to get back to my Rover. If I had a survival kit with me, then I would respawn back at the Rover. So pros and cons, certainly if you have enough materials to make 2 survival kits, I would definitely point you in that direction. I don't, so I've made the decision to stick with this one back here at the base. But just to reiterate that consideration of where your respawn point is and multiple respawn points. Alright, so let's jump into the cockpit and we'll do some settings. So I'll just jump into the external view. Now first of all, I can't remember if I've talked about it or not, but the why I've got 6 wheels, so 2 in the front and then 2 pairs at the back, is that that's kind of the best layout. If I just had a pair at the front and a single pair at the back, so just the 4 wheels in total, that's kind of unstable for Space Engineers. You'll find that you spin out quite easily or roll over. It's just, yeah, having that extra set of axles at the back does really help quite a bit. You'll see that if I turn the wheels, they are all by default set to steering, which is not ideal. We're not really going to know where we're going. So we'll jump into the toolbar and into the control panel. And yeah, also just before I go to the wheels, you see that I've actually started putting a Rover reference on a lot of these blocks. I would really encourage you to get into an early habit of having some sort of naming convention so that you can identify the blocks in each of the vehicles. They do get color coded once you get multiple grids. You know, like if I connect this to the base will be one color and the Rover will be another. But as you get more and more vehicles and bigger bases and more blocks, it does get pretty confusing. For instance, connectors, you might end up, you know, having 20 or 30 connectors, and it's kind of hard to tell which is which. Even to the point where the connector, I might put connector rear Rover, because if I've got one on the front, then, you know, I can name that front connector. So even just telling between 2 connectors on the same grid. So as I say, I just encourage you to get in early with a good naming convention. There are mods that will help name blocks and grids, so that's just an option that you could look at as well. So yeah, back to the wheels. We'll put them into a group, and just, yeah, with the names you can see the value of actually naming those individual wheels instead of just not knowing what they are. I know which ones are the front And I know number 1 is the middle ones and number 2 is the rear ones. So we'll go through the options here. So we've got a whole lot of options. So steering is the first one. So what I'm going to do is the rear wheels, I'm going to turn off the steering. So now you can see that we've just got the front steering. And what I'll do is I'll actually go back into it and I'm going to turn on the rear wheels, the rear set for steering. And we'll just go down and we're going to set the steering angle. I can slide it or I can press Control and mouse. And I'm going to just manually input 5 degrees. So now we can see that the back wheels just do steer a tiny little bit just to help the back go around. It's neither here nor there on this size Rover. This would be fine without the rear steerers, but I just wanted to show you because on bigger ones or Rovers or longer Rovers, or maybe if you had 3 axles at the back, certainly just having that little bit of turning at the back would be quite useful. You'll see that it is also going the different direction from the front wheels, so it's inverted. The Rover has done that by itself. It's been smart enough to do that. But that is also an option in here that we've got invert steering as well. So it may be that depending on your setup and your axles, you may need to select that to get it steering the right way. But what else have we got? We've got propulsion, so I think we'll keep propulsion on all the wheels. Brakes, I tend to turn off brakes on the front wheels and just keep it on the back. So that way it doesn't sort of dig in and the whole thing goes up on its nose, which can happen, especially going down hills. So yeah, brakes on the rear. Parking brake. Okay, so parking is a thing. Parking brake. So in order to put the parking brake on, I'll just move forward a little bit, get a bit of movement, is the P key. And there you can see the parking has been engaged. So we can't move now. I'm trying to drive, we can't move. P again, and that releases it. Now, depending on who you talk to in the space engineers community, there are a lot of people that think P is evil, that parking is evil, and I tend to agree with them. So the reason is not only does it put the brakes on, it also changes the connection of the connector, so it switches the lock, and also with landing gears. Which means when you put the parking brake on, sometimes things that are connected to your vehicle no longer are connected to your vehicle. Which is great if that's what you want, but a lot of people have been in the situation where something has dropped off their vehicle when they didn't intend it to. There is options in there to control that. So if we go into the connector, we have got this option down here, use for parking. So this is it's used for parking, which means if we untick it, it means it's not used for parking. So it's you need to turn it off on all the things, and that's why it's a bit confusing, because you forget to do it. Like if I was to damage that connector and replace it, then it would be already switched. It would be switched off again, or on, sorry. So anyway, yeah, it's a little bit annoying. An option is to use the cockpit on the toolbar, and we can just have the handbrake on or off. So there's park brake, but there's also handbrake on off. And this is probably a better option because we can just move and press 1 and the handbrake's on. Now we can't move. So that's just a better way of manually doing it than pressing P, and then you don't have all the other issues that go along with that. Because even me trying to explain it was confusing. I was confusing myself. Okay, so that's that. So we've got a way to put the handbrake on, which is great. Then if we keep going through the list, so brakes, parking brake, air shock. Okay, so what air shock is that we can basically load up the suspension like a spring and then lift off to maybe get out of a hole or out of trouble. So by pressing the X key, it will load up the suspension, and then when we release it, we jump up in the air, quite high actually. And I don't know if you saw, but I did actually kind of control that landing to try and get it landing level. It was a little bit tricky, but that is why, as I said earlier, it's a good idea to have a gyro, so that when you go up, you can actually control and manipulate how you're going to land. So yeah, the setting for air shock, generally speaking, I would suggest turning it off. Because, yeah, sometimes accidents happen. You press the wrong key, you press X by accident, next thing you're jumping up in the air and all bad things are happening. It's not to say if you get stuck in a hole, you can't just go in here, turn it on, jump out of the hole, and then turn it back off again. It's certainly an option. You could put it on the toolbar, I guess. So I have it turned off. Right, moving down to these sliders, we've got power, which is the amount of propulsion. Could probably reduce that just because we're pretty empty at the moment. Again, these settings especially, just have a play with them. If you're going up a hill, you probably want to increase it. Strength is the strength in the suspension. So at the moment we're fairly empty. If I just give it a bit more strength, you can see it just lifted up a tiny little bit, so it probably did need it. So I'm just going to put it up to 15%. But if I was to fill this up, the cargo container, with a whole big load of iron ore or something like that where it got heavy, then I would need to probably increase the strength, particularly on the back wheels. Otherwise it's going to scrape along the ground and get damaged because there's not enough power in the suspension. So yeah, that's a useful thing to change. And yeah, height offset, so this is just the actual height of lifting up. With the terrain that we're going over, normally you just have it set to high, but you can have it a little bit lower. Can be useful if you want to if you have maybe a connector on the bottom of your Rover and you drive over the top of another connector, and when you get there you can kind of squat down and then make that connection. But we'll just leave it up at its maximum height. Friction, 50% is pretty good, depending on what you're driving on. Like ice has a different physical characteristic than driving on stone. If you're going up a steep hill, then you probably want to put the friction up. But if you're kind of on flatter ground, probably have it right, further down. So I'm actually going to change it to 30. I think we'll do that. Speed, I'm going to drop that back to 100 kPa because 180 or more is very, 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 very quick for a Rover. Yeah, I don't think you want to be going that quick. Propulsion override, so this relates to actually having a set amount of power in the wheels to keep them turning. Just something to be aware of is that if you are going to use this, you're probably going to need to have some sort of setup for it. It's not as simple as you might hope. The thing is, your left and right wheels are actually mirrored, so in order to go forward, your left wheels are going to have to be in a positive percentage and your right wheels are going to have to be in a negative percentage. Because they're mirrored, they're spinning different ways in order to go the same direction. Again, have an experiment with it, that's what I'd suggest. And steer override just allows you to go permanently in a certain direction, which I don't know where that's going to be necessary apart from NASCAR. Right, so yeah, I think I've covered everything off. As I say, that's just hopefully a quick overview, and yeah, we'll have a bit of a drive, we'll have a bit of a go, but really just get in there and have a bit of a try with the different settings, depending on your Rover, depending on the cargo that's on board. So yeah, kicking up a lot of ice here on the lake. What I'll do is I'll just try and get it quite sharp around, and you can kind of, I don't know if you can tell, but when I try to turn it, I think because I've actually got the friction pretty well, it's not gripping. Sometimes it does kind of spin out or grip and just about roll over, but it's actually pretty good. I think I've got the settings quite right. Let's head over here. I mean, it's not turning super well actually, now that I think about it. But we'll see how it goes on stone. So let's just go a little bit closer and hopefully we'll get rid of all this ice spraying out the back. And yeah, so stone is a lot better to drive on, same with grass as well, and it just feels like I've got more maneuverability than on the ice. We'll go up here and we'll just be careful not getting any craggies. But no, this is actually working really well, this Rover. I'm quite happy with this, and yeah, we can get up the hill alright, and yeah, it's got plenty of maneuverability, and yeah, no, I'm happy with that. But that's where I think I'm going to call it today. So yeah, I got the Rover built, so we covered off kind of everything that I feel like we needed to cover off. Learn a bit about wheels. So if you think I missed anything or you got any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below or over on Discord. But yeah, and so that's what we'll call it. So thank you everybody for joining me today. I hope you did enjoy today's episode and can join me again next time. And until next time, as always, stay safe out there everybody and have a good one.